Alright guys, I wanted to give you a little video today about my garden planner and how much it's helped me to be able to not feel like I'm absolutely confused about what it is that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just going to give you a brief video about what it is and why I've done it, and hopefully you guys might take on board why it's a good idea and how easy it makes it when it comes to actually keeping on top of what you need to do. So I'll give you a brief description. So obviously this is my garden here. You can see front garden, back garden. In my video that I'm going to put on of the garden, you'll be able to get a better understanding of what this looks like actually in real life in comparison to what I've done on the actual Excel spreadsheet. So it's fairly straightforward, guys. This is my back garden, my decking. This is a raised bed at the bottom of the decking. These are the 3 raised beds in my garden. These represent hanging baskets for tomatoes. The black circles represent bags. These 9 bags here for carrots. I've got bags for cabbages and bags for potatoes in the front, etc, etc. Okay, so basically I'm going to make this as simple as I possibly can. For me, I was very obviously a new gardener. I'm not really sure about what it is I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it. So I did a little bit of research online. I put a little bit of time and effort into what it is that would make it easier for me to just be able to just refer to something and let it help me to be able to do my garden without having to think about, have I done this, have I done that? So for me, it's like a go-to guide. So for example, this is April. In fact, if I go to February, you might find it a bit easier because February is quite a big month for seeding, February and March. So in February, you can see on here that I've written down dates on what particular vegetable I need to sow. And when I say sow, I mean in little modules in the house. The idea is to try and sneak a little bit extra when it comes to growing. So you can't really sow things outside in February, it's too cold. But you can get a head start and sow them inside, assuming that you've got a very understanding partner who doesn't mind having loads and loads and loads of seed trays kicking around your house. Hopefully you do, but if not, it don't make any difference. You just push it forward another 4 weeks. So you can see what I've done. You can see this is basically me giving myself a heads up as what to do. And then it literally goes through it month by month. It then tells me what I need to sow. It then tells me what I need to transplant, and it tells me what I can actually sow outside. So you can have direct sowing at certain times in the year where you don't have to put them in modules. You can have transplanting, which is things that you've sown inside that you can then transplant either into bigger pots inside, or if it's warm enough to be able to transplant them outside, either into the ground or into containers and pots. And it's basically that straightforward. You do the same for every month. Now, I appreciate that when you're watching this, you're probably thinking to yourselves, it looks a little bit complicated. I thought that when I first did it, but actually when you break it down, it is really, really easy. So what I'll do is I'll show you what I've done. So if I go right to the end, I know there's a few tabs on this sheet, but it makes a huge difference. So I've got one for companion planting. I won't go into that now, but I'll do a video for companion planting a bit later on. Planting list. This was free. This was a free download off the internet. I downloaded this and it gave me a really good understanding of what I was supposed to plant and when I was supposed to plant it. So for example, cabbages. Who don't like a cabbage? Everybody likes cabbages. So if you look at this particular vegetable cabbage here, look, you can see that your sowing temperatures are between 10 and 25 degrees. You can see it takes 5 to 10 days to germinate. If I go to the top, you'll be able to see that. And then the colours represent the sowing indoors, the sowing outdoors, the plant out and the harvests. And it's fairly straightforward. You've got each month across the top, which tells you when you sow, when you harvest, when you plant out. It's fairly self-explanatory. That were a massive find for me because it gave me an understanding of what I needed to do and when I needed to do it. Okay? And then for me, I wanted to try and find out about each individual crop that I was going to try and grow. So this example's cucumbers. I bought some cucumbers. It was called Burpless variety. But I needed to understand what I needed to do with it, how I needed to sow it, how I needed to transplant it, how deep, all the different things that you've got to take into account, where to put it, all those things are really important. For me personally, I like to be able to reference visually. I can read the information, but as you get older, retaining information becomes a little bit more difficult. I'll put it down to old age, but there you go. And don't forget, guys, you're never too old. So what I did was I linked a video. I linked a video on each of the individual veg that I'm going to grow. And you click on the video, and the video opens a link up, and in the link it'll show you what it is that you're supposed to be doing. Forgive me for the... I'm sure the guy whose video I'm about to show you is not going to complain. The guy's Grow Veg, and he gives you a description of what it is that you're supposed to be doing with your vegetables. Basically, for me, that was an absolute no-brainer, because to actually see what you're supposed to be doing, rather than to actually try and figure it out off text, for me was so much easier to understand. You watch the video and you literally follow it step by step. That was an absolute game changer for me. So all I'm saying is, this is why I found the monthly planner much easier for me to be able to start growing vegetables. All I've done is exactly the same for every individual vegetable that I'm going to grow. And then all I did, once I got to the point where I knew how much I was going to be growing, then I needed to design my garden. And all I did was just design my garden like I showed you earlier in the video. Once I'd designed the garden, I then needed to figure out where everything needed to go. Again, from the videos, peas need more sunlight, cucumbers need sunlight. It didn't take long for me to figure out I needed to go into my garden. And what I did personally, which I don't know if you guys would subscribe to this or not in regards to what I've done, I took a photograph. You have to find a sunny day. Try and get a sunny day in your garden and just take a photograph every couple of hours in your garden. And all you're doing is looking for where the shade is and where the sun is. And then when you refer back to your photographs, 6 photographs, 12 hours, you can see where the sunshine spots are and when the shady spots are. And then you can work out exactly where to plant your veg. Once you've got your garden to a point where you know where you're planting things, then all I did was, from every single month, I looked at what I was going to grow and how I needed to grow it. So, for example, in April, I've told myself, through looking at the beetroot, I told myself I needed to plant 2 beetroot on the 16th of April, and then another 2 beetroot on the 28th of April. If you've seen my beetroot video, you'll understand why I'm doing them 2 weeks apart. The idea is, I think it's called succession planting. When you sow them 2 weeks apart, when it comes to harvesting them, you can harvest them 2 weeks apart. So, for example, I'm going to say it could be August. So we've got beetroot here, look. So I planted them in April. I've called it beetroot number 4. So I've put markers in the soil to know beetroot number 1, I had 2 beetroots in on April the 20th. Beetroot number 2 marker, I had 2 beetroots in from April or May the 1st. And then when it comes to harvesting them, I know each marker represents when I'm supposed to harvest them after I've planted them. So you're getting beetroot all the time. So if you spread them apart by 2 weeks, you're harvesting by 2 weeks, which means you'll get 2 beetroot, you've got 2 weeks to eat them, and then you can go get another 2 beetroot. That's called succession planting. And I thought that were amazing, because obviously you have to wait a while for your plants and your vegetables to start growing, but once they start to harvest, you're constantly replenishing your vegetables in your kitchen, and that's brilliant. So I literally went through it month by month, and as you can see, each month I gave myself a task to do. When to sow it outside, when to transplant it into pots or outside, when to actually sow it inside. Obviously March, most things are getting sown inside, but by the time you get to May, you're not sowing things really insides anymore. I hope you guys get a good feel for what it is that I've tried to do. There are lots of planners, garden planners out there that you can use. Most of them are subscription based, but for me, I didn't see the reason why, if I didn't put a little bit of effort into it, that I couldn't be able to do this for myself, to be able to sort it out for myself. It probably took me maybe 15 to 20 hours to be able to do this spreadsheet, but once I'd done it, it was like there for me to be able to do. And the great thing about this is, unless my garden changes, which I don't anticipate, at the end of the year, I can start to look at the year ahead. And if I make mistakes this year, or certain things don't grow the way I expected them to, then I can readjust this for my planner next year. And then hopefully, if I get 75% of my crops to harvest this year, next year I might get 80 to 85% of my crops to harvest. All you've got to do is just put a little bit of time and effort into it. Once you've done that, the rest of it's fairly straightforward. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope I've not made it too complicated. If you break it down month by month, it becomes a lot easier and you don't feel like you're getting bogged down with everything that you need to do. Guys, I much appreciate you watching the video. Don't forget to stick a like on if you want to stick a like on, and subscribe if you want to subscribe. And don't forget, guys, you're never too old. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.